Hello and welcome to Depression Super Happy Fun Time. If you were from the last video, you know we kind of stopped in this section with Coheed and Cambria, and there's a little fill we should be having here. Let's just kind of remind ourselves for context. Here we go. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to work on this section here where we don't have anything. And what you're going to kind of notice is that we can hear that something needs to go there, right? There's too much empty space. So that's what we're going to do. Now, this is the spot we're focusing on, right? You see this kind of 8-bar section. Each one of these is a measure, right? 1, 2, 3, I guess 4-bar section. But that's what we're looking at, right? Oh, no, it is 8 bars because we're in a 2-to-1 right now. That's what's going on right here. You can see that 2-to-1. Let's zoom that in a little more, right? Because we wanted to kind of be working on single measures, right? And I'll show you why here in a second. So let's kind of listen to this spot here one more time. There's a lot of nothing going on here. Why is that? I wonder. Maybe it's because I did that on purpose, huh? Right? There's a big gap there, and there's too much of a gap. So what we've kind of already done, right? And I'll just kind of re-enable these tracks here. And this is kind of what I heard. Now, when you kind of you can do whatever kind of fill you want, right? Like you can do a fall, you can do 1 yen, 2 yen, 3 yen, 4 yen, right? Like high to low, or you can kind of mess around. It's whatever you kind of want, right? The creativity is up to you at this point. You don't have to do what I do. You can do whatever you want to do, right? But I kind of thought that these kind of flam hits would sound good. Now I've got highs, mid, low, and floor. I have four toms kind of to play with here. You might have something else, right? But we also have this cymbal crash at the end to signify like fill is over, boom, right? We're going into another spot. Right? And this is what that sounds like. And I'll kind of break down what I did so we can show you how to do it. So we're just going to talk about the toms, right? So we have the high tom, and we are on adaptive grid in kind of a medium here, and it kind of maxes us out at 16, right? You can't zoom any further out to get more, but what we wanted to do was pull it down to 30 seconds. Now, I've got every hit happening on the 1 of the beat, on the downbeat, right? So we have this one hitting early, so the big hit, as you can see, this one's here at 100 velocity. You can move that down if you want, right? Like you can hear that moving. Right, super quiet. Timbre, that changes a little bit, ever so slightly, right? But we're at 100. I got to kind of zoom it in there. 101's close, right? Little variances are good, right? And then we have the big hit at 127, like you really smack the crap out of it, right? So when you see a flam, that first hit for your drummer is typically a little softer than the big hit at the top, right? That's got crack, 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 right? Like that's what makes that sound. So that's what we've done here with the high tom. So on the 32nd, right before the downbeat on this measure here, and then we have the 32nd right before the downbeat of 2 on this measure. And again, we've got it at 100 and 127 just to kind of give it a little bit of uniformity. It's not necessary that they all be uniform, but what you're really wanting to look for if you're doing kind of a flam effect is that you got one a little lower than the other, and the big hit is the second hit. That's kind of just how a flam works. When you hit, it's softer on the front and heavier on the back, right? You know, like you can hear it. If you want a real world example, you can listen to almost anything done by Dave Grohl. He's very fond of flams. He uses them quite a bit. Just really lock in and pay attention to the drums, right? And we've done that again here with the floor tom, a little low, a little softer hit, and a big hit, right? And that's how we did a boom, 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 boom. You heard that, right? So there's a velocity that does come into play. It's really easy to move the velocity around. You just get under here, this velocity section here. You can click, as you drag your mouse over it, it tells you where you're at. and drag your mouse over the next one. It'll tell you where you're at. But if you wanted to move this one, right, just for kind of examples, right, doesn't make a huge difference, but you lose a little bit of that articulation. All right, so pull that back up. Right, you can hear that you can now hear that second hit a little better. And then the big crashes, we just maximize those velocities because I, as a metal drummer, am going to abuse my cymbals. I tend to hit them as hard as I can. Now, most drummers kind of do, but if you know how to hit them properly, you don't have to abuse them. You just have to make it work, right? And that's all we're doing here. So let's listen to that one more time as a solo. Well, you know, no music involved, right? Here's what we got. All right, just keep them beat. Right, and then you heard that cymbal fill on the second half. Now we're going to talk a little bit about that cymbal fill. This is something that I have seen drummers do on a lot of drum channels. Like, they like to play with the cymbals just as much as they play with the toms. And so don't be afraid to kind of mess around and do some different stuff with the cymbals, right? I just did kind of like eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and boom, right? And honestly, might even want to add another cymbal. Let's listen to that one more time. Now we go back to the China and it kind of gives us a crash, and that's okay. So we can keep it like that. That's no big deal, right? But what we did here is we just kind of put these on the downbeat. Now I did this originally for just like kind of quickness purposes, right? But you're going to want to kind of alternate cymbals, because if you're going to play with the cymbals, very rarely are you going to come back to the same cymbal, right? You just kind of dance around in the cymbals how you want to. But for exercise sakes, you know, we just hit this and we'll copy, Control A to copy everything. And then you can bring all of those velocities up, right? Because we're going to bash them. We're going to bash them again. Now, if you want to vary these a little bit, you can. There's nothing wrong with that. You can bring this one down. Let's say we bring this one down to like 97. We'll leave that one at 127, and we'll bring this one down to like 107, right? So we've got a little bit of variance, give it a little bit of humanization, and we're going to do the same thing with these. Some of these one hits, you're going to beat them, right? They're going to hit them as hard as you can. You're going to smack them like that kid you don't like, you know, because you got like 6 of them, and that one kid just acts up a little bit. I'm just kidding. Don't abuse your children. Come on now. Come on. Anyway, that's what we're going to do, right? So we just kind of mess with the velocities a little bit, just to kind of give it a little more of an effect. And then we'll play these again together as its own. Right, so we heard that little variance there. It's subtle. It's very subtle, right? It's not going to be a big thing, but those little devil in the details type of things, they're going to help you out a little later in the run when we get to more intricate patterns and things that we're going to want to pay attention to if we're going to try to mimic a real drummer as best as we can, right? Things like the downbeat, and that's usually the harder hit, right? Depending on how the kick drum is going. It's kind of like a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a, right? That downbeat is going to hit a little harder. But we'll talk about that in the next video when we kind of get more into the meat of my particular cover where we did the kick drums here. So let's listen to this all in context again, just for kind of acceptance. If everything made sense to you, just kind of take your time, right? If you don't know how to set the velocities or how to program this in, I'll walk you through that here real quick. Just listen. Let's listen to this one more time in context. So that's what we have in context for the song. Works pretty nicely. You can kind of feel that fill hits where it's supposed to be just before that transition goes back to its main kind of return on that loop. And that's kind of what you're going for. You're just kind of looking for something that works for you, right? Like, what if you wanted to do, just for instance, like what if you wanted to do, instead of flams, we wanted to do 16th note falls. Well, we're going to do that. Let's just do that, right? 1E and take that off, right? We're back on the 16 grid, and then duplicate. Control D, copy pasta, right? Super easy. And take those off and kind of put those, right? We don't need to worry so much about velocities when we do it this way. They're not quite as important. right? Because what you're focused on the most is that they're hitting. But if you want to get really, really intricate, you want to maximize this one and maybe kind of vary these three, right? Which you can do by going like this. And then like, let's say you wanted to kind of randomize it. Click this randomize box here. You see randomize here where my mouse is, just to the right. Let's vary that by like say 10 and hit enter. And what you'll see is each one of these varies within a variance of about 10. Now they didn't move much this time, but they can, right? It's up to the machine at that point, right? And then we'll do the same thing here. Made that first one, that first one, and that first one. So now we're not kind of focused on that hitting on exactly that downbeat. And here's what we're going to get with that. Right. Now, personally, I don't like that as much, but if that's something you wanted to do and you kind of liked it, then that's okay. Run with it, right? I liked it kind of being on the broom, 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 and we would just undo until we get back to that point. Not so hard, right? We're just Control Z until stuff looks right. And that's how you would kind of go through fills. And again, we'll talk more about this as the channel goes on. If you have any more questions or anything like that, please feel free to post them down there. I will kind of focus on them maybe in the next video. Like, comment, subscribe. Anything that you guys do to kind of push this out and let people know that it even exists is extraordinarily helpful to me. And I would be ever so grateful, So thanks for stopping by. And as always, you matter. You are loved, and the world is a better place with you in it. Now, I say these positive affirmations because I needed to hear them at one point in my life. I'm getting a lot better, right? But maybe you're in a downturn like I was. There's a reason my name's depression. You know what I'm saying? So just remember that. Thanks for stopping by. Love you guys.